Bobby, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. Why don't you go ahead and take a moment and tell our listeners who you are and give them a little bit of information about yourself.
Well, I like other people, other interesting people, scholars and visionaries. Got enlightened in the latter part of the 80s and the early part of the 90s. This is a resurgence of consciousness that hit the planet. In this particular case, we was talking about with black people. What had happened was every so many years, every 20 years, every 20, 30 years, we have this resurgence of consciousness. We had it in the late 60s. We've had some in the 20s and the 30s. It's always up and down. We would have this resurgence of some type of awareness. What made this one the creme de la creme, the ultimate resurgence of knowledge compared to the ones before? The ones that we had the resurgence of knowledge in the 1960s, late 60s and early 70s, was we was getting to know our identity. What made this one a little bit different in the late 80s and the 90s was we reached all the way back into our ancient history, and that was different. So we're no longer a product of African American history, which starts with slavery, but we reached back into our classical history, which not only dealt with West Africa, but we reclaimed East Africa and Egypt itself, the pearl of knowledge on the global planet. And as a result, the floodgates was open. Where I came in is the first wave started with historians, Dr. Ben, John Henry Clark, Asa Hilliard, Dr. Charles Finch, and a whole host of people, historians. Where I came in, they always talked about the mysteries. The Egyptian mysteries. But no one really could explain what the mysteries was. My claim to fame was actually breaking the link. And what had happened was the European community had preserved a lot of the ancient knowledge that came to them by the Moors, who were direct priests that came out of the Egyptian mystery system after the Arabs invaded Egypt, the last invasion of Egypt. So they carted this knowledge into Europe, stayed there for 700 years, taught them, and then the Europeans preserved it. But what they did do is, after preserving it, they made it their own in a particular aspect. These advanced sciences, these mysteries became the New Age movement, the metaphysical movement. You see, so, and so, and as a result, by researching and going into these particular stores and these particular areas, I realized that this was the lost, missing pieces of the mystery system, just renamed. And as a result, so when I started lecturing in 1992, it snowballed and all, and so that was my claim to fame also. But around that same time, we had other scholars that had done stuff like started researching the mysteries of melanin, and one of the chief scholars is one by the name of Richard King, who wrote the book African Origins of Biological Psychiatry. He also wrote a book called Melanin, the Key to Black Greatness. He also and then he wrote a recent book called Why Darkness Matters with him, Dr. Richard King, T. Owens Moore, and Sister Ann Brown, PhD Ann Brown. So this research permeated throughout the whole. Not only did we have these mysteries, but melanin was always a key component and central to all metaphysical studies when we studied it from the black perspective. You see what I'm saying? From the black perspective. And so as a result, we find out that this melanin is at the key to all things central to meditation, all things central to esoteric knowledge of the inner workings of the body, the mind, and the soul.
Okay.
And so, yes, so,
okay.
So I've been, I never stopped going, never stopped running after entering into the lecture and the research field, and have been basically doing this thing for 16 years.
That is beautiful to hear.
Yes.
That is definitely beautiful to hear. I'm so happy to hear that. Mm-hmm. Definitely. We have a lot of users in the chat room here. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, great. Recently went over to the UK, London, and even uncovered some mysteries there in the British Museum. Okay. So if you, we have those particular DVDs are now hitting the different areas or different places where people get the DVDs from.
Oh, okay.
And
good.
So we still uncovering mysteries and stuff. So it's a great day for knowledge. Mm-hmm. Okay,
that's right. Okay, well today is definitely the day. So we can go on and get into the show now. So I'm so thankful that you actually shared a lot of the history of how this all got started.
Yes.
I didn't even know that. So, but I'm just a youngin' too. So, I definitely look forward to learning more. So the first thing that I know, my first question for you, Bobby, is that there's a lot of people out here who don't even know that. I mean, believe it or not, that there are people who ain't never even heard the word melanin.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who've heard the word melanin, but they don't even really know what it is. So can you, just kind of take a moment and elaborate on that?
Well, let me give you two versions of melanin.
Okay.
We'll start with the cosmic aspect of melanin, which is known as dark matter. And they've been researching this stuff for the last umpteen years. Dark matter, there's a book called Through a Universe Darkly. All you need to know is the name of the person. And so that is this cosmic substance. This cosmic substance. And it's more than just a substance. It's everything from the essence of an intelligence, the fabric of space itself. Mm-hmm. It is known in the Bible when they say in the beginning there was darkness. But there's thousands of references to this darkness in Egypt. In Hemmitt studies, even the god Osiris is called Lord of the Perfect Black. It's also called Techem, heavy star material. So it's multiple names. I did about 10, 15 years ago, or about 14 years ago, tried to jot down just about how many things could be named melanin, and I was up to almost 300 different things, because if we're talking about something that is the basis, it's actually one of the bases you hear all the time, carbon. We are carbon-based beings. Well, that's what melanin is, carbon. Forms of earth melanin is oil, crude oil. You see what I'm saying? It is the same thing that you hear of in the Bible of the anointed one. Well, what it means, the anointed one, it means anointed by olive oil, but olives are both black and green.
That's right.
Well, Osiris is known as God of the perfect black, but he's also known as the green god. You see what I'm saying? Among Pan and other different, El Kedar is the green one in Islam. But they always talk about the green and the black. So these are ancient mythological mysteries, just alluding to this mysterious substance that is not only permeates everything, but it will be the outcome of everything also, including when we go into the earth mysteries of global warming and all that type of stuff. So there's a connection with that. But what it basically is, so that's the cosmic aspect of this mysterious substance. Okay. In the inner aspect, as far as the biological aspect, which is inside of our bodies, it is a substance that is secreted by the pineal gland. Osiris is called a corn deity. The pineal gland is in the central part of the brain, in the middle of the brain, and it is big as a grain of corn. It's as big as a grain of corn. but melanin is also permeates throughout our central nervous system. Okay. Melanin is not only within our central nervous system. Melanin is also called junk DNA. So you have DNA, which is the two double helix strands that you see. Then there's the DNA that science either can't understand or don't want the public to understand, and they call that junk DNA. That junk DNA is nothing but melanin. You see what I'm saying? Nothing but melanin.
Okay.
You see?
Okay.
And so this particular, and now the thing about it here is another reason probably why is because we have, as black people, have a greater output of the melanin, but nevertheless, everything down here has to have melanin to even survive, including white folks. You see what I'm saying?
Everybody needs to survive. Okay.
Right. So you can't go by, and one thing about the melanin, the one that's the most important is the one that is in the central nervous system. This cosmic black substance, sand-like substance, is in the central nervous system. And in that particular case, you can't just measure it based on skin color, based on the melanocytes. The melanin that's in the skin is just basically the melanin that protects black people from the sun that lives on the equator or equatorial Africa or on the continent of Africa and other hot climates. That's the melanocytes, and that is the skin aspect. What we're talking about here is one that is the one that's in the central nervous system, which is our essence, which means you can have a great deal of melanin and be very light-skinned. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
You see,
okay,
so
wait a minute. Can I just...
Yes.
I just have a quick question on what you're saying there, because I want to make sure I understand what you're saying, because you're saying, okay, we had the melanin in his skin, and then we had the melanin that's in the central nervous system, so it sounds like there are different kinds of melanin. Or
yes. The first indication of melanin comes from the first humans. So obviously these first humans being in tropical climates would have a darker pigment. And as a result, that melanin aligns the melanocytes, what they call melanocytes, which makes the skin black to protect it from the sun.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? And the hair also black. You see? Now, but nevertheless, we still have, even if we just talk about the African family, we still have different hues of Africans. But even if we talk about people from around the world, and even if we talk about black people in our newer form, where we have different hues ranging from dark skin all the way to light skin. That melanin, there's another melanin, which is the inner melanin, which permeates the central nervous system. Have names for it. Richard King and Dr. Carol Barnes and them talk about a certain melanin. But anyway, you can be heavily melanated and light skinned. You see what I'm saying? On that particular aspect, because we're talking about now, here we're talking about a form of DNA, the inner stuff. You see, especially when they talk about junk DNA, the melanin that can't be understood, or they don't want to understand it, or they don't want science to understand it. You see what I'm saying? Or the scientific community, which is a really tragic community, is the scientific community, because the scientific community is always a community that is a byproduct of something that is secret, that the global elite will go in their lodges, in their secret societies, and learn the greater part of that. The tragic part is when it gets to the scientific community, they're always limited to the physiological aspect of things.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And as a result, that's tragic, because there's greater levels of this that we don't never learn, because the simple fact here, there's a consensus and a conspiracy, yes, to hide the greater knowledge from the people.
Greater knowledge, and obviously this is something that people need to understand, so this is very
right.
important.
Okay,
right. So the next question is going to be this, and I know you kind of touched on that within the answer of what it is. You say you got regular everyday people that's listening. So let's just say, okay, now we know it does this or it does that. Why does it matter? What does it do? What's the significance?
Melanin is everything from a cosmic computer. It is spirit.